Okay, hi everybody. Here goes take two. I'm a little frustrated because I just did this whole thing and I don't know if I didn't hit record or something happened. I think it was actually like my best YouTube performance so far. Not that that's saying that much, but um, thought it came out pretty good and then I got nothing. All right, so here we go. Let's try this again. Hope everybody's doing well, staying healthy, um, making it through these awkward times. No cameraman today, so you don't have to worry about hearing the awkward, heavy breathing or seeing my ugly basement. And let's do it. Okay, so here I'm going over um, assignment number 7, right? I'm going to talk you through that, and then I'm going to go over the first ditto that I sent you guys today on oligopolies. Take you through the first part of that, and then that'll be it. All right. So this was already going to come out late, and then I just wasted however long doing one that didn't even count for anything. So I'll post this as soon as I can, but I won't make an assignment until tomorrow. And then just a quick note on that. Tomorrow I'll make watching this and doing a couple sketches based on it. The assignment. I am going to throw in a couple of the problems from the textbook. All right, so that'll be for tomorrow, and then going forward, we'll get to the real important part of oligopolies, which is game theory. And next week, just as a heads up, we have been told, and I'm going to take it a little bit easier on you. Not that I've been, really cracking the whip so hard, but it'll be a little easier or lighter next week, being that it's all the religious holidays, and I'm sure some of you guys are going to be spending a decent amount of time in church, Holy Thursday and Good Friday and all that kind of stuff. All right. Okay, so the first part of your assignment number 7 was based off of the first video I did that got cut off, which is where you're looking at this, and this is monopsony. Okay. So the first question was, with no regulation, how many workers would be employed and at what wage? Right. So if this is a monopsony, right, they're going to hire the units of labor where their marginal factor cost, what it costs them to get that labor, is equal to what they get from that labor. And what do they get from the labor? They get a product, and they get revenue from their product, and they get one more of it. So it's marginal, one more, revenue from the product that next worker, or whatever that factor or resource might be, produces. Right? So again, what they get out of the worker, what the worker costs them. Right? Now, in a perfectly competitive labor market, the MFC is going to equal your labor supply, just like Mr. DARP, where marginal revenue equals demand and price. Okay? This is not perfectly competitive. This firm can control the wages that it pays. So that's why it's MFC falls above its labor supply, right? Because in order for them to hire one additional worker, they have to pay that worker more, but then they have to pay all the other workers that new wage rate as well, right? Which is why your marginal factor cost curve lies above your supply curve. So they're going to go, here's my magic spot. This is the quantity of workers I should hire, or hours, or bags of fertilizer, or whatever. Now, for that many people to be willing to work, what wage must I give them? Well, they'd be willing to work for anything up here, but at least I got to give them that. And I can control this, right? So if I know that's my number, what's the lowest amount I could give these people to get that many workers? It's right there, right? So the first answer was, I'm going to give a wage of 1, right? And I'm going to hire whatever labor L2 is. So that's how many, and that's how much I give them. Okay, so the first answer was L2W1. A couple people missed that one on the homework. Which, by the way, I already typed up a written explanation for everything on assignment 7-4. I'm going to send that out later. If you want to watch this, read that alongside of it, just watch this, see if you understand it, then maybe go back and read that. I figure the more ways you have it, the better. Some people like to listen, some people like to watch, some people like to just read, some people like to do both. It's all good. If the wage was set at W-2, now this is going a little forward to the Khan Academy question, but if you set that wage at W-2, what does it do? It takes your marginal factor cost curve and it flattens it. It makes it horizontal because each additional worker will get that same rate because they have to, because it's a price floor, because it's regulated. Each worker will get W-2 no matter what. So it takes that marginal factor cost curve and it flattens it and it's horizontal. So if your wage had to be 2, now my labor is L4, and obviously the wage is W2, right? So what has that done in relation to what the monopsony would do? Well, it's increased the amount of workers, and it's increased their wage. So in your summary statement, where a lot of you said price floors will always lower the amount of labor, not true, right? If there's a monopsony functioning, and you put a price floor in at a good spot, you could increase your level of labor and increase your price. Now, it's still not socially optimal, which is there. Socially optimal would be there because your marginal factor cost would equal your labor supply, just like Mr. Darp and perfectly competitive industries selling things, right? So you're still not socially optimal. We don't know what socially optimal is here because on this ditto, they didn't give you anything, a wage that matches up to that or a unit of labor that matches up to that, but you can still see where it would be, okay? That would also be your competitive outcome, right? In a competitive market, that's your wage and unit of labor. So again, if you set a price floor at W-2, right, you have helped the situation as far as the workers go. There's more of them being hired at a higher wage. If you went to wage 3 instead of price floor there, now we're here, and we still have more workers than we did under the monopsony, just not as many if we set that price floor a little lower, but those workers who are working are getting a little bit of a higher wage. So that answer should be L3. So you're still up on both, just not as much as you would have been if you set that floor at W2. If you went all the way to W4, now what do you have? Well, these workers are getting a nice high wage at W4, but you're back to your original unit of labor, right? So all those people who could have had jobs now aren't getting them. Now you're down here where you originally were with the monopoly, right? Except those people are getting a much higher wage. And if you really went nuts and said, no, we're going to put a price floor up here at W5, well, that's great for those workers, but now you're at L1. Now you have even less people than were working in the monopsony, right? Those people who are working are psyched because they're getting a real nice salary, but again, that's why the trade-off, that's what the trade-off is, right? You have even less workers than you did under the monopsony, but those workers are getting a higher wage. All right? Preguntas? No, because you can't talk. All right. With any of this stuff, guys, as always, email, text, anything you want clarification on. If I screw something up, which does happen. Next I wanted, basically just what I did on the other video, the market for labor, or the industry, next to a firm, in a perfectly competitive system. In a perfectly competitive system, it's just what we always have seen, right? Where your demand, why do you demand labor? Because it gives you marginal revenue product. The supply is your marginal factor cost. So you're going to hire labor where what they cost you is giving you what they bring you. And that's going to be here. That's for the market. For the individual firm, you got to take whatever that price is. Whatever that price is in the market, you got to pay it. Because if you don't, nobody's going to work for you. And if you want to give them more, you're just stupid. And your demand for the labor stays the same. It's still demand, it's still marginal revenue product. So that's where the firm is going to hire. They're going to hire that number at that price or that wage. So industry, firm, boom. And then I just asked for the monopsony situation which we were just looking at. Okay, so demand is just as it always is. It's demand, it's marginal revenue, product. The supply is here, but in order to hire one additional worker, I gotta pay that worker more, and then all the other workers that new amount. So my marginal factor cost, and again, it could be marginal resource cost, seen it both ways. That's the amount I'm gonna hire, but I'm not gonna give them that wage. What would this amount of people be willing to work for? Whatever that is. So that's my wage that I'm gonna pay. Socially optimal, or the competitive outcome, would be where your marginal factor cost is equal to your supply, and you'd be there. All right? Okay, I just want to check that we're still recording because I was incredibly frustrated a few minutes ago. Good news for you, I feel like I'm moving through this a little faster this time. So that's good. All right, next. This is going back to monopolies. Just wanted to make sure we had this totally locked down. Monopoly versus the perfectly competitive industry. Okay, so perfectly competitive industry, you've been doing it all year. I'm just going to do two different ones so it's not so cramped. It's your demand, it's your supply. Equilibrium, boom. Right? Doesn't get easier than this. We didn't talk about it in terms of this being perfect competition when we did regular supply and demand because we were more focused on what happens if there's more firms? Supply goes this way. What happens if people really like this thing more? Demand goes that way. But that's perfect competition, right? So what is your price? Whatever that is. What's producer surplus? It's anything above price. Above supply but below price. So that's your producer surplus, right? And then what's your consumer surplus? Is anything below demand but above price. So that's your consumer surplus. That's it. Right? Easy peasy. If you screwed it up, it's probably because you were overthinking it. Right? And I think I'd ask for quantity too, which would be there. Can't get easier than that. Where we had a little bit of an issue was the producer surplus in terms of the monopoly. Okay, so monopoly. Demand. Marginal revenue falls underneath it. Why? Because to sell an additional unit, you got to lower the price of that unit. You got to lower the price on all the other ones. And remember, whatever this is, marginal revenue will hit the x-axis halfway between where the origin and the demand curve hits the x-axis. Right? Now I'm going to do something a little different here. Right? What's different? My marginal cost curve isn't my normal Nike swoosh. Why did I do that? Just because for this, it's going to make it easier for me to show you producer surplus. Okay? If they give you a question like this and they don't specify that marginal cost was decreasing then increasing, and you got to show producer surplus, do it this way. It's easier. And here's why. You know you're going to produce here. You know you're going to jack the price up to here. Why? Because to sell that quantity, what's the greatest amount people would be willing to spend? That much, whatever that is, right? So, if this is your socially optimal spot where marginal revenue is the same thing as demand and it hits marginal cost, if that's socially optimal, and we're not there, we're here, that makes this my dead weight loss. Mutually beneficial transactions that haven't taken place, okay? We still have some consumer surplus because there's still an area that's underneath demand but above price, because here's my price. Okay. And everything that's left above marginal cost is your producer surplus. This was the only area that I saw the most people, or a lot of people, making mistakes. And I think one, because you put in the Nike swoosh as you're normally used to seeing it, right? And it was just kind of hard to sketch. Or you thought that you needed an ATC curve, all right? For producer surplus, it's about marginal cost, not ATC, Okay, so I got my deadweight loss, I got my consumer surplus, I got my producer surplus. Let's keep rolling. Again, I'm hoping I'm not forgetting anything because I feel like I was saying a lot more in the last video, but you guys know me. I do have a little bit of a tendency to babble. I blame it on my vaudeville ancestors. That's how the old Scots and Irish made their money when they first got to this country. Sitting on stage and telling stories. Okay, so the next part was about the Khan Academy. Was the Khan Academy questions, right? So I apologize. I didn't realize that the questions changed a little each time as far as the way they worded it or the specific graph they gave you. Product. It's the same idea each time. It's just they were giving you slightly different graphs or wording the question slightly different. So I didn't realize that. But as long as you were trying it and looking at the explanations of the right answer, you still should have been getting the important stuff out of it. So here goes. The first question was about what happens to your marginal factor cost curve when you put a price floor in. So I already said this earlier. You're essentially making it horizontal. You're saying that each additional worker is going to cost you just as much as the last one because you have to, because that's the rule. Minimum wage is 12. I got to give this worker 12, and this worker 12, and this worker 12, and this worker 12. The second question was about deadweight loss. So where's my deadweight loss here? Well, again, I told you before, this is where society wants to be, right? That's socially optimal. That's the competitive outcome, right? Where am I? Well, I know I'm going to use this quantity, right? So whatever that quantity is, and the way you could describe it, which is most of you said, right? It's where marginal factor cost hits marginal revenue product over to the socially optimal spot, and then from the marginal factor cost crossing the marginal revenue product down from that point to the actual supply curve. All right, so that's your deadweight loss from the monopsony there. And just like in any other case of deadweight loss, it's a triangle pointing back to where society wants to be. That is your competitive outcome or your more efficient point, socially optimal point. Competitive outcome, yes, that's the competitive outcome. Okay, so again, marginal factor cost crosses marginal revenue product down to supply over to the socially optimal spot. 3, again, I've said a couple times already in this video, to hire one more, you got to pay that person the new higher wage, and then all the other workers that higher wage as well. So I hope some of you got the one where it was a question of they actually gave you the numbers, like a chart of at this wage this many people would work, at this wage this many people would work, because that gets at the idea of it's the change in total cost of labor, right? That is why your marginal factor cost curve falls where it does, right? So if my total cost of labor when I'm employing 5 workers is $500, right? But now I hire one extra worker, right? And I got to pay them $200 instead of $100, right? That makes I'm not going to do the math in my head because I can't. But now my total cost of labor is the $200 that I got to spend on all of those 6 workers. So that's what? That's $1,200. Can I do this in my head? So that's $1,200. So your total cost of labor went from 5 workers at $100 each to 6 workers at $200 each, right? So it's the total change in the cost of labor, right? So that total change in the cost of labor is why your thing falls here. I have to think about I wish I could do the math in my head. The $100 that I'm paying to 5 workers versus now the $200 that I'm paying to 6 workers, right? So 5 times 100 is 500, right? And now I'm paying 6 workers 200, so that's 1,200. So 1,200 to 500 is 700. So my marginal factor cost, look at this, I did it in my head. The marginal factor cost of that 6 worker is actually $700, right? Seems weird that 1 worker costs you $700, but it does, because you paid that worker the 200, and now I got to kick back an extra 100 to all those other 5 workers that were already working. All right, I think I got my math right on that. That was 3. And number 4 was just about where to produce, right? We've said this a million times, where to hire labor, where marginal factor cost hits marginal revenue product, right? That's the number of workers you hire, but you don't give them that wage. You go as low as you can. To get that number of workers, I have to give them how much? I got to give them that much. I'm not going to give them any more because I don't have to, because I'm a monopsonist. Okay. Good. Okay, there's a last part about the monopolies. I'm not going to draw this up. Most people were good that it's not a monopoly, it's not allocatedly efficient because it does not produce where the marginal, where price equals marginal cost. And I think I went out of order here. I think this is before the Khan Academy stuff. Sorry. It's also not productively efficient because it does not produce at its minimum ATC. Right? So what we call that is if you're not producing at your minimum ATC, it means you have excess capacity. You could make more, and it really wouldn't cost you that much, but you're not doing it because you don't have to. Right? So you're not at minimum ATC means you're not productively efficient. You're not allocatively efficient because you're not producing where price equals marginal cost. And not being at your minimum ATC means you have excess capacity. That comes up much more with monopolistically competitive firms, so just hold on to that thought for a little while. The box on the left, most of you got this. They're examples of price discrimination. Senior citizens are on a fixed income. Student discounts, students just don't own as much or make as much, so they don't have to pay as much. Volume discounts. Hey, if you buy 85 rolls of toilet paper, we'll give you a better price than if you buy 20 rolls. Wish I had done that a couple of weeks ago. Membership at BJ's. You get a better discount because you're a member. Advanced purchases. You bought your ticket 6 months in advance. You're going to get a better deal than the guy who buys it the night before. People who take the time to cut coupons. Loyalty cards. First class tickets, you're willing to pay more. Outlet stores, I'm willing to drive all the way out to Riverhead to get a better deal. Almost nobody, I don't think anybody, got this one. Right? This should be conditions necessary for price discrimination. Why can I price discriminate? Because I can identify certain sections. I can identify you as a student, and you as a senior citizen, and you as a military personnel. I can identify you. You sat there and took the time to cut out the coupon. You took the time to drive to Riverhead. So you're going to get the different price. I have some market power, so I can control who gets what price. And there's no possible resale, right? What good would it do if a student could use their student discount, buy something, and sell it to somebody who doesn't have a student discount? So again, very important. Those are reasons for price discrimination, why you can price discriminate. People are good on this one too. A monopoly will only produce in the elastic range. Why? Because after the elastic range, you're inelastic. And if you drop your price in the inelastic range, you drop your total revenue. And you don't want to do that. Where everybody screwed up was this one here. I'm going to draw it quick. A monopolist. I'm hoping you all read too fast. And that's kind of what I was trying to do. I was trying to not trick you, but keep you on your toes. This is demand. This is marginal revenue. Almost every single one of you, I think one person got it right, said if this was your ATC and it equaled your MC, almost every single one of you said, oh, okay, well, the problem is maximize revenue I'm going to produce here and that would be 2. Then I'm going to jack my price up to 6. I didn't ask you about total profit. That is your point of profit maximization. Right? That's where you're going to make the most profit. Right? That is not where you're going to make the most revenue. Revenue and profit are 2 different things. Your most revenue is going to come as long as your marginal revenue is positive. Then it's going to go negative. As long as it's positive, you continue to increase your total revenue. So that happened at quantity 4. Right? And that all goes back to the idea that your total revenue continues to increase at a decreasing rate until when? Until marginal revenue hits 0. After that, marginal revenue goes negative, and so does your total revenue. Okay? So please read carefully. I think most of you knew that. You just went too fast. Right? It says, assuming the monopoly pictured is a profit maximizing monopoly. Well, maybe that threw you off because if they're profit maximizing, they're going to go there. But what would be the quantity of output would maximize revenue, saying, okay, they are here if they're profit maximizing, but what would be the best revenue for them, or the highest revenue for them would be here. You'd go past that point of profit maximization, and you'd go until marginal revenue hits 0, and that would be at 4, at a price of 4 also. Okay, so we kind of messed up on that one. All right, still with me? Let's go to oligopoly, and then we'll be done. I'm not going to do right now the 2019 free response question that I posted for you guys, because even though a lot of you said you wanted extra practice, not one of you did it, at least not one of you turned in your homework. Okay, so I'm not going to do it now. If at any point you want to try it, please do, and I'll gladly sketch it up for you, grade your work, comment on it, whatever. I think it's really good practice. I think you're silly if you don't, because you're only getting 2 free response questions for all the marbles here, man. It's all going to come down to that. I guarantee you one of them will be some kind of sketch of some kind of market structure. Maybe you get perfect competition, which we've kind of beaten to death, so you should be good on. Maybe you get monopoly. It might give you monopolistic competition, which we'll get to. But of the 2 questions that you're going to get, I can almost guarantee one of them is going to be a sketch of a type of market structure. I would put a lot of money on that if I had it. You're also very likely to get something with a payoff matrix. They love the payoff matrix question. It has to do with oligopoly, so let's jump in. I told you on the classroom today, right, that this first worksheet is one of those ones where I basically give you almost the entire unit in one sheet. This one's not like that. This is about a third. For oligopolies, you get 3 main concepts, I guess. One is the idea of collusion, cartel collusion, why you would cheat, what happens when you cheat in a situation like that. 2 is the kinked demand curve and how that creates a slightly different marginal revenue curve. I've never seen that on a part 2. I could imagine it being this year, the first year, but you never know. And again, I'm trying to give you the full experience of a introductory level microeconomics class in college. That's the goal. So I'm going to go over that anyway. But the one you're much more likely to see on your AP exam that you're taking at home, which is really weird, is the payoff matrix and the game theory stuff. So we'll definitely do a bunch of practice with that, right? So this will take us, those are 3 things. This will take us through the first third. All right, so hopefully you printed this out or at least looked at it. This is talking about the HHI, right? This is the Hershmandahl, whatever the guy's name is, index. This is what they use to quantify or classify a market as competitive, kind of competitive, not very competitive. Right? It's pretty simple. So here, we're talking about the soda industry in Diabetesville, whatever. It says there's 10 firms. Remember, oligopoly, it's not so much about the size of the firms, right? It's more about the number of the firms and the market share that they possess, right? The number of firms is more important than the size of each firm, right? The number of firms is more important than each size. So real simple formula. They're not going to make you do this, especially on a part two, because they know you don't have calculators. But they tell you that there's 4 firms that control 20% of the market. Okay, then it tells you that there's 1 firm that has 5%, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 firms that have 3%. 2, 3, 4, 5. So to find your HHI, your Herschel-Hirschman index, you just take the square of each of those, add them together, right? Again, they're not going to make you do that because they know you have a calculator, but you should know the concept. And that's going to equal 1,670. And we know, or I know, that that is somewhat competitive. How do I know that? Because I read the textbook, and I know that these are the rules, all right? If it's less than 1,000, it's pretty competitive. If it's between 1,000 and 1,800, it's kind of competitive. And if it's over, greater than, whatever, 1,800, not competitive. Okay, so that they would classify that as an oligopoly, right? We know it couldn't be a monopoly because if it was a monopoly, you would just take 100%, square it, and whatever that number would be into the monopoly. All right. So, if in this industry, if it was like America, that considers those numbers what you go by, right? And 2 of these firms wanted to say, we're going to combine. Well, now what do you have? You got everything you already had, but now you've got, instead of 2 more firms that have 20%, you've got 1 firm that's got 40%. So now we got a 40% firm, 2 20s, a 5, and then all my 3s. If I do that math, now my new HHI is 2,470. And the Federal Trade Commission or Justice Department or whatever is going to say, that's an oligopoly. Can't do it. Not going to let that merger take place. Unless, of course, you know people in the government and you can take them on golfing trips and private jets and whatever. But again, the point is, if it's over 1,800, they consider that an oligopoly, and they're probably not going to let it happen. Or they shouldn't let it happen. Okay? Okay, last thing for today. Really hope I'm not forgetting anything because I feel like this video is going so much quicker than the one that didn't record. Although I guess it's already 34 minutes, right? You guys are already sick of me. Okay. So if this is your situation, 10,000 demand, marginal revenue, that's at 5. Okay, so we're assuming that the graph below shows, the graph in front of you, shows the information for two companies which are going to act as a duopoly. If they were to form a cartel, which again, collusion is different than a cartel. Collusion is just kind of like wink, wink, nod, nod. Hey, you want to do this? Okay, let's do that. Yeah, that works for me. Cartel is where you sign an official agreement, sign your name, and they'll come kill you if you break that agreement. Okay, so they're going to produce at the profit maximizing level of output and split the market evenly. How would, or what would be the total level of output? What would the price of their product be? And how much revenue would each firm get? Now, they're giving you a ridiculous situation because they're telling you that marginal cost equals 0, but it's just to show you the idea. So if marginal cost equals 0, where's my magic spot? Marginal revenue hits marginal cost over here at 5. Now, these are thousands. Right? Yeah. Hey, so in the market, they're going to produce the profit maximizing level, which is 5,000 units of output. And they're going to charge $5 a piece for these things. Like, just like Monopoly, right? Except there's 2 firms. So they're going to say, look, that's what's best for the industry, but we're gonna split up here, right? So of those 5,000, one firm gets 2,500, and the other firm gets 2,500. Now I'm just doing revenue here because I don't have average total cost, and it doesn't really matter for the major concept. So let's just talk about total revenue instead of total profit. If they split the market, they each get that many sales at that price. So what do they each get? They each get 12,500. Okay. And so therefore, as an industry, what do they get combined? Well, they're 12,500 twice, so they get 25,000 as an industry if they agree to work together. Sounds good, right? This is cooperative. It's the cooperative solution. But what if one of these firms is like, you know what? I can make a couple more of these things and nobody's going to find out. Get a couple more sales and I didn't sign anything and they can't get me in trouble. So I'm going to make some more. Okay, so this is our next question. So now suppose that one of the firms decides to cheat on their agreement and to produce 1,000 more. I hope it says 1,000 more on yours. The one I'm looking at, I had a typo on. It said 100,000. It should only be 1,000 more of their product. What effect would this have on the market price and the revenue for each firm? Well, let's check it out. If this guy cheats, that affects the entire market, right? Now there's 6,000 of these things being made. If there's 6,000, what are people willing to pay? Well, they're only willing to pay 4 now. So let's see how this affects people. The cheater, he broke from the agreement of only doing 2,500 and did an extra 1,000. So now he's doing 3,500. Yeah, 3,500. Now he's getting $1 less for each one. But what does that get him? That still gets him 14,000 in terms of total revenue. So he's up. He's up 1,500. So this worked out for him. And he's cheating and feeling good. What does this mean for the non-cheater? The good guy. The good guy continues to sell what he's told the other dude he would sell for. But now he's getting a lower price of $4. So he ends up walking away with only 10,000 in total revenue. So he's down 2,500. That much? He was at, yeah, no, he's down 2,500. Okay, and then we want to go back and talk about the overall market. Like the overall market now is 10,000, 24,000, I'm sorry, 14,000. The new market is 24,000, which is down 1,000. Okay, so key takeaways, right? If you're in agreement, it's the best outcome for the overall market, right? You each walk away with 12,500. One guy cheats, he's better off, other guy becomes worse off. Interdependence. This guy's actions affect that guy's results, okay? He's down 2,500. He's up 1,050. The overall market is down 1,000. What's going to happen? Well, if this guy figures it out, he's going to be like, yo, man, screw this. You want to keep making more? I'll keep making more. And the other guy goes, I'll keep making more. I'll keep making more. I'll keep making more. And you continuously drop your price. Again, this is theoretical. Nobody's stupid enough to keep going until they drop their price to absolutely zero. But hypothetically speaking, that's what would happen. They would match price cut for price cut until you hit 10,000 and your price equals zero. Right? Last thing. What do we call this? We call this Bertrand. This is Bertrand competition. That means it's price competition. I'm going to try to cut the price, and you try to cut the price, and you try to cut the price. Why? Because it's easy. Whatever these things are, right? Markers, Yoda mugs, Kool-Aid pouches, whatever. They're easy to bang out a lot more. I said I was going to just do 2,500, right? I said I was just going to do 2,500, but now I can make a bunch more, so I'm going to cheat. I'm going to make a bunch more, right? That's different than core knot, right? Core knot competition means you're producing something where you're kind of trying to guess on or about the other person or other firm's level of output. And you can't really change it once you make that guess. If you're making luxury airliners, right? Once you decide I'm going to make 10 based on what my competition is making, once you set up and start making those 10, you can't really change that in a hurry. Be like, oh, you know what? Let me make 15 luxury airliners or luxury cruise ships. Once you set off making those first 10, you're pretty much locked in. You can't change it very quickly, right? So that's why you're trying to gamble or bet on the number that your competitor's trying to make, right? Again, this is Bertrand, and if this sounds a little cheesy, whatever, come up with your own way. I say core knot, cannot. Core knot, cannot, because I cannot make a whole bunch more once I decide this is how many I'm making, right? Bertrand, and this is even cheesier, I say Bertrand, like brothers, like they're the same thing. I can just bang them out very easily, right? So this would be an example of Bertrand behavior, right? Price cutting until we wash away all the profits and all the revenue, right? Core knot, I cannot make a whole bunch more, even if I want to very quickly. Think airliners, cruise ships, movie theaters, other things that you can't just turn the machine on and make a whole bunch more of. LeBron James posters or, Justin Bieber clothing, whatever it might be, right? So core knot, cannot, Bertrand, brothers, you can make a whole bunch more. That's the first major part of oligopoly. We'll practice some more with it. Tomorrow I'll give you some practice questions out of the textbook, all right? That's really just to get the concept. Again, the most important thing for oligopoly as far as the AP goes is the payoff matrix and the prisoner's dilemma, the payoff matrix, and the payouts. And you're very likely to get a question like that, right, this year especially. So we really want to focus on that. We'll do a lot of practice with that, talk about game theory, but you're not really going to understand the game theory unless you kind of have a concept of collusion and the cheating idea and going tit for tat and all that in the first place. So hope you got it. I'm going to post the answer key to assignment 7. You can watch that. You can look at that as you're watching the first part of this video. And if one helps you more than the other, it's all good. Any questions, any problems, please text or email, and I'll have something up for tomorrow. I'm going to post this video now. Thank God it recorded, so second time's a charm apparently. I'm going to post this now. If you see it and you want to watch it, fine. I'll put it on the reminder that it's there, but I'm not going to make it the official assignment until tomorrow because it's 4:37, and that would be quite ridiculous. All right, stay healthy. Tell the people that you love them, and see you next time.